women in politics in America as future president? Who will?
And here's the answer.
I appreciate the sentiment. Yeah. Look, I am very much concerned about the direction of our country, and it's not just who runs for office, but what they do when they get there.
Welcome back. That was from ABC, an event hosted by Jimmy Kimmel. And our guest right now is Jay Cost. He is the staff writer for the Weekly Standard, and we're glad to have you with us right now. Jay, Hillary Clinton and the Republicans, of course, she has not come out and said that she is running in 2016, but she's likely the candidate. She's all been but anointed by the Democrats. What about the whole idea of a female president? And it's time for the country to have a female president. How much of an issue is that in terms of people voting for her?
Well, you know, it remains to be seen how the public at large, will react to it. It certainly appears that it will be the centerpiece of her campaign. At least the gauzy early initial stages where she's setting herself up in the mind of the public as a candidate for office. And I mean, and that's basically how she went about it in 2008. And of course, Barack Obama undercut her on that front. But, you know, it remains to be seen how salient that'll be come the general election.
Well, Jay, you wrote a great piece talking about what you call the Republicans' problem here, or at least having its hands full with Hillary and trying to get someone to match up against her. Before I ask you about some of the candidates that you might think would have the best shot, I think Lisa brings up a good point about the female factor. Not only will the media attack anybody who dares to question Hillary as being anti-woman, the way they accuse anybody questioning Barack Obama as being a racist, but there are many women. I've seen some polls out there that just say yes to Hillary because they feel they want a woman. As Lisa said, the time has come. And so, I mean, if the Republicans were to maybe put up a woman, I mean, would that, with mass appeal, would that be their best bet, you think?
Well, you know, maybe. It's hard to say on that front whether or not that'll actually do any good. And more importantly, it's hard to see, it's hard to be certain whom the Republicans could put up on that front. I mean, that's sort of another major ambiguity in that kind of situation. I mean, we don't know how that gender-based appeal is going to work in the general election, and similarly we don't know how the Republicans are going to respond to it, whether or not they have a female candidate who could actually accomplish that.
And of course the baggage, Hillary's baggage, and I'm not going back to First Lady or Rose Law Firm or any of that, or Bill Clinton being Bill Clinton's wife. I'm talking about more recent baggage as it relates to the Russian reset, where she hands the foreign minister the button and laughs. And, of course, Benghazi, where she sits there and says, what difference does it make? I mean, I know foreign policy sometimes doesn't enter into a presidential election all that much, but those are two issues do you believe that she's going to have to overcome those and distance herself from Obama on them as well as explain them?
Yeah, I think so. Again, it depends on how the Republicans approach her on those issues. The Republicans are going to have to make an issue out of Benghazi. The Republican nominee will have to. But yeah, I think that she has a record to defend. She's inextricably linked to the Obama administration. Certainly will be perceived as the heir apparent. I think that she has the ability to some extent to carve out an independent identity, but she nevertheless has to speak to the Obama record and public dissatisfaction with it.
Jay, the Clintons have always identified themselves with the middle class. They're the ones that are more in touch with what's going on, with the regular folk. Yet Hillary Clinton, not too long ago, admitted to herself that she has not driven her own car since 1996. They hang out with rock stars. They have big donors, big business people. They're not exactly regular folk anymore. Aren't they the elitist? And isn't that something that a Republican candidate could speak about Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, I think so. it depends on the Republican nominee whom the party ultimately selects. They would have to select a nominee that could, you know, make the best use of that angle. So there are some potential candidates. You know, Scott Walker comes to mind, Marco Rubio comes to mind, people with relatively humble backgrounds who would be very good at making that claim. And then there are other candidates who wouldn't be as good. You know, Mitt Romney in 2012 was not the sort of candidate to make that kind of claim, coming as being as he was the son of a governor and a car manufacturing CEO. Jeb Bush would probably also have that difficulty as well, being as he is the son of a former president. So, you know, there's an opening there for the Republicans to take advantage of, that they, you know, but it's not necessarily going to, you know, the script isn't going to write itself. You know, it depends upon whom the party selects.
All right, now let me ask you about the question of Hillary's health. And, you know, and a Republican candidate, I think, first of all, I think on the issue of the wealth, I think even if I were a billionaire, I would confront Hillary and say, you know, if she's portraying herself as a person of the people, I would say, you're not very different than me. You know, how many, what do you get, 250,000 a speech, 500,000 a speech? How many speeches of those kind of you and your husband made? You know, I mean, I would attack no matter what. But on the issue of health, again, if I'm a healthy Republican candidate, I release all my health records and I you know, demand that Hillary do the same. If that's, is that going to be problematic for her, A, if she doesn't do it, and B, if she does do it?
I doubt that it will be problematic for her, the health issue. If she decides to run, you know, look, it didn't matter at all in 1944. I mean, FDR was clearly dying during the 1944 presidential campaign. Frankly, you didn't have to look very hard at him to notice that he was. That's why there was such a fight in 1944 behind the scenes to select Harry Truman as the nominee, and yet he still won about 53% of the vote. Public will look the other way on things like that, or they don't want to assume the worst. I think that, you know, the Republicans run the risk of appearing tacky if they pursue that angle.
Really, a woman who is, you know, fainted and hit her head and had rumors of something, you know, with the head, and I don't know if it was an aneurysm or some rumor of something. You think that questioning the health of the person who would be the president of the United States at 67 or whatever she would be, with a history of medical problems, you think that that's really pushing it?
I do, and I think that you know, if you're going to make the claim in the subtext of your campaign, if you're going to run a campaign on youth and vigor and change, you know, you can do something like that, which is similar to how Barack Obama ran against John McCain in 2008. But, you know, Obama never made an explicit issue out of McCain's previous skin cancer. I mean, there's a very it's a fine line, but there's a real line in American politics on appropriate and inappropriate attacks on candidates that has been pretty well defined over the years, and you have to be careful not to cross it.
Jay, what about Benghazi, which we've been speaking about? Will the public overlook that, or is that going to really impact her chances? I mean, how are people not more outraged about that?
Well, you know, they're not outraged about it because of the political class's decision not to, you know, gin up outrage. You know, why was the public made to be outraged about a third-rate burglary of the Watergate Hotel in 1973, 1974? It's because Woodward and Bernstein aggressively pursued the case and got Senate Democrats interested and, you know, ultimately moved the narrative forward. And that's just something the media has been studiously incurious about Benghazi, and has in fact that's a little charitable to them, I would say. They have been very quick to declare it a non-story. And also to...
And Jay, of course, one could argue, Jay, we're up against a hard break. One could argue that's because of the little D next to the names in the administration as opposed to an R. We thank you, Jay Cost, staff writer for the Weekly Standard. We'll speak to you again. Thank you. Lisa, great having you aboard.
Oh, it was great to be back.
Nice to see you. And we're coming back with Gimme 5, ladies and gentlemen, right here on the Steve Malzberg Show.